So we hope you all enjoy this, and we are going to get started with headline news. And we have a ton of great stuff to cover today. We're going to be starting here with a subject that I think is really, really cool. It's a topic that a lot of people were talking about 2 to 3 years ago, but it's popped up once again because of a major order from a major airline. So Qantas is officially going to launch Project Sunrise as they have finally selected their aircraft. Now, this has been a project they've been working on for about the last 5 years or so. The Project Sunrise green lighting really required the correct aircraft, and they were picking between the Boeing 777X and the Airbus 350. They chose the A350-1000, and I assume this will be the ULI. It doesn't really state exactly what it's going to be, but I believe it is the ULI, which will be used for Project Sunrise. So you might wonder, what is this Project Sunrise? Well, Project Sunrise is what Qantas claims is the last aviation frontier, and that's to be able to fly from one point, in their case Sydney, Australia, to anywhere else in the world. And this would include London Heathrow, New York JFK, Los Angeles, places like that, Sao Paulo, airports like that. Now, as of right now, there's not any aircraft that are on the market that can consistently fly to those destinations with the requested 350 to 450 passenger capacity. And that is what Qantas wanted. They wanted it to be able to fly, say, Sydney to New York, which would be the longest flight in the world, about 22-hour long flight, with 400 passengers, all their bags, so right around 400, 500 bags, plus cargo. So estimate another about 5,000 pounds of cargo on board. There really haven't been too many aircraft that exist right now that can quite do or meet those requirements. However, Airbus offered a very attractive option with the A350-1000. I assume this is the ULR variant, the ultra long range variant, which will be modified specifically for this purpose. Now, Airbus did something similar for Singapore Airlines with the A350-900 ULR, and I assume that this Qantas A350-1000 ULR ultra long range will be very similar. This will allow Qantas to fly the longest flights in the world. They won't just have the longest flight. If they do Sydney to London, I believe that will also be one of the longest flights in the world as well. And Sydney to New York, potentially something like Sydney to Miami could be a thing that they would do as well. But lots of interesting things. This is amongst a very large order that they have placed over the last couple of months, including the A321neo, the Airbus A220, and now the A350 officially being added to their portfolio. This is really good news if you like seeing the bounds of aviation pushed, which we haven't seen a whole lot in recent commercial aviation history. So the fact that Qantas is the airline that is now pushing the bounds of aviation is such a great thing to see. And it's going to be an awesome, awesome addition that they finally selected the aircraft for Project Sunrise, which is to fly anywhere in the world from one destination. And they have picked the Airbus A350-1000 ULR as their aircraft of choice.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely incredible to see what Qantas is doing here. Obviously, Qantas, one of the best airlines, arguably, in the world. And just to see them choosing Airbus here as a whole is just absolutely insane. You know, obviously, Qantas has had a good mix of aircraft throughout the years, obviously adding the 787 in the recent history, but also having the A330s, A350s. I mean, they've had a really solid lineup of aircraft. So to see them choose Airbus is just absolutely incredible. And I'm not going to say that that's obviously this isn't in the Boeing by any means, but it definitely says something when one of the safest airlines in the world chooses Airbus here. So it's definitely something to note. Also really cool to see the Airbus A350-1000 special livery here for Qantas too. I thought that was a really cool looking plane, and just to see them have this locked in and everything's just really, really cool. I'm really excited to see where Qantas is going to go with this. I feel like their fleet variety is going to give them so much ability. I mean, obviously they have several 737s and older aircraft too, 717s, various other A330s. I think they've pretty much fully replaced their 767s at this point, but nevertheless, what I'm getting to here with this is they definitely are going to have plenty of options when it comes to getting the right balance and blend for these routes, such as, you know, London, any destination in the US, you obviously have flights to all across Europe, the Middle East, Asia, everywhere. So there's a lot of variety here, and I really feel like this is going to suit them well. I'm really excited to see where Qantas is going to go with this, and I really feel like they have great potential there. So really, really excited for that, and I think Qantas is going to do a great job with that. Our next headline item is, unfortunately, Mike Tyson, the boxer, reportedly punched a passenger on a JetBlue flight. This was on April 22nd. This would have been the day our podcast came out, and the initial episode, to clarify. But unfortunately, very, very sad to see this. So the JetBlue flight was scheduled to fly out of San Francisco on a transcontinental flight to Florida late one night. I think it was the day before, but I could be wrong on that. But nevertheless, what happened was apparently Tyson was... it appears that he was standing. There was some mocking going on, it appears, unfortunately, and then apparently there was some video that leaked out of him repeatedly, punching the man in the face as others were trying to calm the situation. So really unfortunate to see Tyson doing this. So obviously, I don't know his history very well, so I can't speak on it too much, but I knew that he was a professional boxer and that sort of thing. So definitely a big name. It's unfortunate to see another violence occurrence here across the nation, as recently during the pandemic, we've seen a lot of these violent issues. One crazy statistic from Simple Flying, there were 12 incidents per 10,000 flights at the beginning of 2021, which is that's a lot, man. Luckily, it's down to 3.8 incidents per 10,000 flights of this month, where we're at right now, which is definitely better, but it's still just something to think about. Obviously the pandemic definitely put a mood in terms of how people act in public, and it definitely contributed to these incidents. And unfortunately, this is kind of something that we've seen a lot of. You can find videos on social media platforms of all kinds of incidents, which is really unfortunate, but ultimately, hopefully it gets better. I think that, obviously the pandemic is going to have long-standing effects, and hopefully people, I don't want to use the terminology grow out of this, but hopefully the behavior improves going forward as the situation continues to progress and get better. So quite interesting for sure. And hopefully no more to come from popular celebrities punching people. So, Citrus, any thoughts on that?
This kind of behavior was seen from people as completely unacceptable, as it ruins the civility and the nature which people should be conducting themselves when they are traveling, particularly in public. I do not condone this activity at all, and it's definitely something that people need to stop doing. But I will say, a lot of the reasons for these sort of incidents, which are popping up a lot more than they used to, happen to be because of, one, the pandemic, which caused a lot of people to become more restless when they traveled, particularly with the increased restrictions and such. The political dramatization that we're currently in America, where there's very extreme views which are clashing with each other, and then also the additional that goes along with political violence and such that's been happening. And so all that has been translating to people are more likely to cause issues when flying. Now reportedly, this incident between Mike Tyson and another passenger was due to a seating position conflict, supposedly. That's allegedly. We don't know that for sure, but that is what supposedly is. Apparently over a seat recline, which I think is one of the stupidest things to have an argument over. That's not a hill you want to be known for dying on. I'm just going to put that there. So, don't do stupid things. Be civil when you fly. Because the thing is, if you cause one of these incidents, there are a lot of consequences that can happen, because it's not just you cause an argument or a fight and you get on the internet. You can be put on no-fly list. You can be removed from the flight. You can even go to jail in some cases. So just don't do this sort of thing, and you won't end up winning stupid prizes. The next topic we're going to talk about has to do with Qatar Airways coming back in the spotlight. For those of you who've been covering or watching the Qatar Airways situation, you know that Airbus and Qatar Airways are currently in a heated legal battle over the Airbus A350 paint issues. Now, I've taken a look at some of the footage that Qatar Airways has put out about the paint degradation issue, and what you're seeing irregular paint peeling, essentially, where the paint is prematurely falling off the aircraft. Now, this will happen over time. You see a 20 or 30-year-old airplane, you'll see the paint start to peel off. That is fairly normal. The problem here that's happening with the Airbus 350s from Qatar Airways is that they are happening at a much quicker rate than you normally see on aircraft. So you're seeing aircraft that were delivered 1 or 2 years ago having this issue, which is not really acceptable. The average paint life for an aircraft is about 4 or 5 years, and so you're seeing this paint falling off way too early. And it is something that Airbus and Qatar Airways have sort of heated into a significant argument, and it's sort of blown up into a proportion that I think is a little bit overblown. I think both sides are overblowing the situation a little bit. A settlement could have probably been made fairly easily, but now they're just going to court over it. This thing's gonna drag out for years. That's what usually happens. We probably won't hear the final results of this situation for another 2 years, but as part of that, Qatar Airways has stopped all A350 deliveries, and it wouldn't surprise me if Airbus at some point even cancels the remaining A350 orders. So that is something to keep an eye on and to watch out for. As Airbus has already canceled some of their orders for the A321 and such. So things to look out for when you're watching the news and such. But before you come up with an opinion on the Qatar Airways situation, I would say wait it out, wait to see what information comes out. You can look at information that both Airbus and Qatar Airways has put out. I definitely do think there was something wrong on Airbus's end with the aircraft that they produced, but I also think that this argument has sort of gone blown up way out of proportion. So that is my opinion there. And it's kind of another unfortunate drama that is, I think, a little bit unnecessary and even a little bit petty at some points. But it's what can happen. People are petty, even at the corporate level, because just like in real life, a lot of the situation between airlines and manufacturers is a relationship. It's not just as seemingly super professional as some people think it is. It can get petty, as we're seeing right now. So that's what can happen. It just is a reality of the aviation industry. And so for now, I don't think Airbus is going to be taking deliveries to Qatar Airways for any more Airbus aircraft for the meantime. So we'll see what happens. We could definitely see a significant shift in the Qatar Airways fleet to Boeing, which they've already started to make that move over there. So as we're seeing Qatar Airways move to Boeing, we're seeing Qantas move to Airbus, and this sort of shift just happens. You'll see airlines move from one company to another as they're able to get better deals or better relations with the company.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's quite an interesting situation here. It just feels like once we weigh one side really hard and compliment Airbus, they just fall right back down. And that's kind of what I think's happened here, unfortunately, with these issues. Now, who knows what the final case is going to be? Like Citrus said, this is probably going to be an ongoing court case for lots of months, but at this time, obviously Qatar's not very happy with it, and I wouldn't be very happy with it either. The aircraft that you ordered, I think they are trying to get about 100 total of these aircraft. It was somewhere in there. That was the initial plan. It's definitely fell off a cliff really fast, and this has definitely affected Qatar's long-haul network. You've seen several of their aircraft being substituted on different flights, and hopefully they don't turn into United's inconsistent mainline just in the heavy department, but if paint's falling off aircrafts and having all these issues, I don't know what more you can do about it. So it's most certainly unfortunate. I'm eager to see what's going to happen. And yeah, there's a lot of principles to be took away from Qatar's A350 situation just in general. It's going to be really interesting to follow this. I expect more to come on this here in the future. We'll definitely be talking about it. It may even be on a monthly basis. It really just depends on how much news we're able to get for this subject. But another subject that involves some court and that's been very interesting is JetBlue attempts to enhance Spirit's proposal, JetBlue attempts to enhance proposal, but Spirit board still prefers Frontier. Sorry about that. So this has to go back to a few months ago when the Spirit Frontier, quote unquote, air quotes, merger was announced. There's been some words around the campfire about JetBlue potentially coming in to see if they'll take over Spirit, but it appears to be that got denied. So here we go into the details of this. All right, so pretty much JetBlue put out an offer to Spirit saying that, hey, this is what we have to offer for you guys. An enhanced superior proposal was the proper terminology for it, but there's a couple of different things that they offered here that they thought they would like. So first off, it would have the reverse breakup fee that JetBlue would be marking would be approximately $200 million, pardon me, or 1.8 per share, which I don't know too much about that, so I'm sorry. I don't know if that's great or not. But in contrast to Frontier's, that is approximately 47% higher, which is quite a bit, at $33 per common share. Again, this situation, I don't know the full details, but these quotes from Robin Haynes, I think, put it a little bit more generically. So let's hear from Robin Haynes what he had to say there. By creating a natural competitor to the big four airlines, I think he's referencing Delta, American, United, and Southwest, pardon me. This transaction would deliver meaningful benefits for customers, superior value for shareholders of both airlines, and new opportunities for our combined crew members. We have a confidence that we can complete this transaction and bring more low fares and great service to more customers. A JetBlue Spirit combination would deliver enhanced financial strength and accelerate revenue growth and profitability for JetBlue shareholders. So, again, stocks is definitely something I'm trying to get better with as time goes, but JetBlue appears to be a pretty stable airline for the most part with what they're doing. Spirit seems to also be pretty good too, so definitely would make sense that if two good come together to make one possibly great, that would make sense, but Spirit had some other things to say about that. So in short, Spirit pretty much said that they were not a fan of the superior proposal. The offer must be reasonably capable of being, I'm going to botch this word bad, but I think it says consummated, I think. But the board at Spirit thinks that JetBlue proposal falls short in that standard, which is probably fair. Again, learning details as we go. This is what this podcast is for sure. So, but the combination of JetBlue and Spirit would have a low probability of receiving antitrust clearance, particularly given that JetBlue's strong position with American Airlines and Northeast Alliance. That pretty much goes into the monopoly situation. And notes that the DOJ and attorneys general in 6 states and the District of Columbia have sued the block the NEAEA already. Sorry, they are starting to reference it by that now. Adding Spirit to the mix is unlikely to help the cause. So, in other words, they're saying that due to all the allegations between the Northeast Alliance, that pretty much makes the JetBlue Spirit merger a no-go. So, yeah, it's unfortunate for sure, but that excuse me, that puts Frontier back in the lead here for the merge. So that pretty much just wipes JetBlue completely out. And going forward, it appears to be that that Frontier is going to be at the hold. And quite frankly, I think this makes the most sense. I did a full video on this on my channel back when the news came out. But just because just the fleet commonality makes so much sense in my opinion. They have so many similar aircraft and just would flow really well. The crews would be perfect. There's like no issues to think of there. That would transition really well. Sure, there is the big difference with Spirit's frequencies compared to Frontier's. Frontier's less frequencies than Spirit for the most part. But I feel like they could find a happy medium, make that work really well. And last but certainly not least, there's a lot of mutual bases that they could really come together to be very profitable. So ultimately, I think it's really good for the customers and both airlines in general. You can go either way with it. There's definitely thoughts on it, and I think Citrus will definitely agree to that as well. But it's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen. Again, this is definitely going to be a story that we're going to have to follow going forward. I don't think we're going to have an answer probably till the end of the year on official news, but it's a very interesting story for sure. So Citrus, what are you thinking?
Yeah, this is definitely an interesting situation, as it looks like Spirit is for sure going to get bought out by somebody. Who it is, we don't know exactly yet. We know only so far that JetBlue and Frontier have interest in acquiring Spirit. And by the way, Spirit would be the airline that would be acquired. They are the smaller brand, the smaller airline, and both these proposals are to buy Spirit. Make that clear. It's not a merger. This is actually an acquisition of Spirit Airlines. And JetBlue would acquire Spirit Airlines, as would Frontier, if either of their proposals were successful. Now, Spirit has denied the JetBlue proposal and seems to be more interested in the Frontier proposal. Now, I suspect one of the reasons for this is transitioning into the new Frontier Airlines, which will include Frontier Spirit, would be easier than transitioning into the new JetBlue, which will include JetBlue and Spirit. I actually would have preferred the Spirit JetBlue merger, and the reason for that is because Frontier and Spirit merging is actually not a good thing for customers. Yeah, not at all. Because what's going to happen is Frontier and Spirit will merge, And if that happens, they will have the ability to raise prices, because right now, Spirit and Frontier are the two lowest cost carriers in the United States, and it isn't even close. Next would be airlines like Allegiant and Sun Country, but after this merger, Spirit and Frontier will be so large, they will almost make Allegiant and Sun Country completely insignificant and almost not matter at all in comparison, which is not good for the customer. Having more choices for customers is better because that provides more competition and thus better prices. JetBlue is more priced like Southwest. JetBlue is more of the premium low-cost carrier, as Southwest is sort of headed in that direction as well, as basically the less expensive, or in JetBlue's case, the nicer alternative to United, American, and Delta. And I think what this is going to do is, if Frontier and Spirit merge, they will be such a large company, they'll be the fifth largest airline in the US, they can actually afford to raise their prices by $20 overall. Average ticket price will go up by $20, and it will still be the cheapest option in the United States for a major carrier. And so that's probably what they're planning to do. They're planning to merge, they're planning to put the airlines together and to be able to make this new airline that will be able to be collaborated very easily. They already have a plan for what they're going to do, and it will increase the profitability. Don't believe a single thing that they're saying when they say it's going to make better customer experience or offer more lower fares. What it's going to do is going to offer more expensive fares with more options. So you're going to be able to go to more destinations with this new merged airline, and they'll have a national network, which will be really nice as another option. But it is going to come at a price increase. I guarantee it. You watch my word, there will be a price increase if these two airlines merge. Whereas if JetBlue and Spirit merge, the whole intent would be as an expansion to JetBlue's network. And maybe if I could definitely see them offering Spirit, keeping the Spirit brand as a secondary alternative to JetBlue. It's like a JetBlue but low cost JetBlue. So I think the JetBlue proposal would have been better. It would have been better for shareholders, and I think it would have provided a better product overall. And what we're going to see instead is a Frontier Spirit merger, which will make the ULCC reputation even worse than it already is, while coming at a price increase. It's going to happen, and I don't like it.
Next on deck, don't think I've ever heard this one before, but a Pelican blocks a taxiing flight at San Diego Lindbergh Field. How about this? So, yeah, I never thought that we would be talking about a Pelican on the ramp, but we have a Pelican on the ramp. So here we go. So on April 22nd, once again, April 22nd turned into one heck of a day. Mike Tyson punching passengers, Pelicans on the apron. I don't know what's next. But an Alaska Airlines flight, it was on the behalf of Horizon Air, was flying between San Diego and Seattle Everett Field. And unfortunately, it was delayed due to a Pelican in the way. So there was a single Pelican, just one Pelican, sitting on the runway, and it sat there for more than 15 minutes. Highly recommend checking out Vast Aviation's video on YouTube. It's a pretty funny little clip, and he does a lot of good stuff. But one big quote from that of the aircraft registered November 625 Quebec X-ray is, "Sir, you are not going to believe this, but we are unable," and unable in this connotation means we're not able to do it, "because of a Pelican sitting on the taxiway. He is not moving." And there's some pretty good pictures of this on Twitter and such. It's very interesting to see what's going on with the Pelican. Hopefully, going forward, the Pelicans won't be causing issues. You know, wildlife is something that, unfortunately, you just can't control. You know, flying a lot as a student pilot, birds are the big one. You want to avoid those. So, you know, you're going to see a lot of wildlife that, unfortunately, you just got to attain to. And I give props big time to these Horizon pilots for doing the right thing and waiting on the bird to move, because you wouldn't want to get it clogged up potentially in the landing gear or under the engine or anywhere else that the Pelican could have made it. But yeah, tough to see a Pelican on the ramp. Pretty interesting. I actually saw a turkey on the way home from school today, so anything's possible nowadays. But yeah, there's a Pelican on the ramp. Glad that everybody was okay, and the flight, despite being delayed 15 minutes there, was only a few minutes behind getting into Everett, so quite interesting. But yeah, anything's possible, so definitely be ready for it at all costs. That is the rundown on the Pelican for sure.
Pelicans are one of the interesting species, as you will encounter all sorts of animals when you walk in the airline industry, because we are starting to get into bird season, which those of you who work in the airline industry know that's the season when bird strikes are very common and there's a lot more birds in the air and on the ground, as in this case, which can cause more delays and incidents. So in the airline industry, we want to prevent bird strikes as much as possible because they cost the airlines big time. They cost time, they cost money, and nobody likes them. So the pilots decided to just sit on the taxiway and wait for this bird to move. Was the right decision. Eventually, if you take a look at the videos and such, you'll see eventually the police come out, the airport security, and they essentially escort the bird off the taxiway. And eventually he is coerced into flying away. And so the flight can then proceed to take off from the airport. But it's one of the hilarious incidents, and you'll see more of this. It's not just birds. Like in Alaska and in the north, they have to deal with bears on the airport. That's right, bears on the airport. And those are quite ferocious beasts to encounter. You don't want to treat those very lightly because they can cause a lot of aircraft damage too. And so it's starting to get towards bird season where, for those of us on the ramp, when we do a walk around when the aircraft arrives, we have to watch out for bird strikes, and they will be very obvious when they happen. In fact, you'd be surprised at some of the things that hit aircraft in mid-flight. There are bugs that will make 1-inch large splatters across the airplane because they're just that big and they hit with such speed that they are just completely obliterated. Same thing will happen with bird. And you don't want a bird strike because obviously it instantly kills the bird or the object that runs into the plane. And of course, they made the right decision. And it's just one of those things where you're just going to encounter wildlife in the aviation industry. Like at Dallas, they have an entire containment unit which is for containing wildlife, including one of the most common ones they have to deal with there is rattlesnakes. So all sorts of interesting wildlife that you're going to encounter. And we're going to see more articles like this, I'm sure, in the upcoming months. The next interesting news item has to do with monthly U.S. ticket sales rise by 45%. I believe this is for the month of April, is what this ticket sale increase is for. And it's pretty incredible just how much people are starting to travel now. A lot of this has to do with restrictions going away in some countries and with the removal of the mask mandates. So, in the United States, that is, in particular. And so, we are seeing a huge growth. And as someone who works in the aviation industry, I can confirm this is 100% true. At Delta Airlines in Des Moines, our traffic has exploded in the last month. We've even added an extra flight to Minneapolis to help deal with that increased level of interest in flying. And it's really hard now for people non-rev or fly non-revenue flights because if you can fly non-rev, that's based on open seats, and there's less open seats on flights now. We're basically going back towards 2018, 2019 numbers, and I think by the end of the year, and within the next year or two, we're going to be at 2017 levels, if not 2019 levels. So the industry is recovering very quickly, and there's a lot of opportunities available, but it also means that people want to fly. So this is also coming as prices are increasing because airlines can now charge higher prices, not only because of the fuel price increase, but also because they can just charge more now. More people want to fly, and there is a huge demand. This is definitely something that's happening on all U.S. airlines, regardless of the airline. Delta, Allegiant, Southwest, Spirit, you name it. Everybody is having higher ticket sales, and more people want to fly than we have seen in the last couple of years, which is great for the aviation industry returning to normal. So it looks like this year will be the return to normalcy in the aviation industry. So I'm really happy to hear about that.
100% completely agree with Citrus, what he had to say there. I mean, there's not a better way to swing it than it's just crazy to see, just the increase, man. I mean, I can say this from my experience as well, especially looking for flights myself. I've just struggled to not get frustrated with some of these prices, outside of Austin connection, getting from Tulsa to Chicago O'Hare for over $500 is just, oh my gosh. And, everybody's in different situations. Definitely don't want to deny that, you could fly from, let's say, New York to Los Angeles for probably $100, $200. But, there's different situations where prices are going to be different, all kinds of connotations. So obviously, one absolutely crazy statistic is that total ticket sales were $7.8 billion. That is insane. That is a $2.4 billion increase from February. That's somewhere in the ballpark, probably a quarter, 25%, which is Wow, wowzers is an understatement. But again, this is really good to see because outside of, there are some exceptions down there. I would say probably 10% of the aviation networks, but 90% of the networks are completely back thriving. And as we'll see later in this episode as well, there are airlines outdoing their 2019 numbers, by a lot. It's not even close. So it's really, really exciting for sure. It's a little frustrating at the same time, but sometimes we just got to do what we got to do. And, travel's going to happen. I think business travel is definitely getting a little better too. Leisure is still thriving, most certainly. And summer's coming up. It's going to be one of the most historic summers. Last summer was insane. I think this one is definitely going to go right next to it. So headline news looking really good. Again, absolutely.
I have a quick question. Are these numbers the March numbers?
I would assume so, yes, because it wasn't in the April when these numbers came out. That was published April 23rd. So I would.
Okay, now that I'm just going to give you a preview of what's going to happen. We're going to have an article coming out soon, probably next couple weeks. The numbers almost doubled once again in April. I'm telling you, there's about another.
I would say a prediction of probably over $10 billion
April.
is not out of the question. Maybe even closer to 12 or 13.
I'm going to predict
12 and a half. I'm going to take. That's a lot. I don't want to say the same pick. I think I'll do over 13. I'll take over 13. Between 13 and 14 if it was that big of an increase. If we're off on that, you may be seeing us do something, but we're gonna go for 13 billion. I think 13, and then Citrus took 12 and a half. You said 12 and a half.
Yep, I take 12 and a half. I think we're gonna have really. So these are just the March numbers. Travel once again exploded in April. Like I personally am looking at non-rev here. 2 weeks in a row coming up here later in May. You can't go anywhere. It's almost impossible. And the numbers are absolutely exploding. And we're going to have, these are just the March numbers. We're going to have numbers like this increasing once again in April.
Summer is going to be big, man. We may get to 15 billion.
It's going to be crazy.
Especially with all the world events. Not to get into that, but I mean, like Citrus said, it is definitely a factor for what we're seeing at this current time, and it's going to be very interesting going forward to see what we're going to see. It's going to be super interesting. There's a lot of factors that can go into this too, so. Overall, just what a topic in general. It is going to be insane. I'm really eager to see what the future is going to hold in that department.
Runway 17, clear to land. Clear to land, runway 17, come on, 257 Kilo Alpha.